tell us a little bit about how you two work together and why that relationship is so intrinsic to your work, and how that resulted in some of the things that we saw today in both pieces.
So at 18, I started dancing at a kind of very intense level, which is what Brian's talking about. And about 7 years in, I found myself at kind of a critical inflection point. And so I went back to school for visual art. And so I think a lot of what you're seeing tonight is this fusion of dance and of visual art, which is the mission of the work that I make. It's about how does dance become visual with the light and with the objects.
And in terms of your process of conceptualizing what a visual element will be for one of your works, can you tell us a bit about like the backstory of these two pieces? And so how is it in your conversations with Daniel or with the dancers? Do you come up with this kind of fascinating floor grid or these really stunning backdrop video? At what point in the process do you make these decisions? How do you introduce them to the dancers, and how does that then kind of dictate or shape the direction that you take with the work?
What's a little bit untraditional or innovative about the work that we're trying to write is that we start with the image first, and we start with the visual first. So historically, dance started with the music and with the score, and it was this whole dialogue. And if you think about like the Ballet Russe, that dialogue, they called it the argument, is like the dance and the score and the dance, the music and the dance, the choreography and the music, and on and on. So what I'm trying to do is just pivot that conversation to say the image and the dance and the visual, and how those forms can spar with each other. And I use the word spar because it's sometimes a lot of navigation and a lot of negotiation, and sometimes fighting, which you saw tonight. A lot of the mission, if you will, of my work is how do you contribute to the history, this great history of choreography, but how do you work on the image and the visual, the visuality, and how do you make an unforgettable image? And if it's okay with you, I'm going to grab James by the ear. This is his visage. And I'm going to ask James how we make an image out of dance.
How we make an image out of dance? Basically, in the creation process, we were doing a lot of different types of improvisational scores, a lot of sort of chance gesture making, and looking at the ways in which these images combine and trail and trace upon each other. But really kind of finding the ones that have specific, that are active signifiers, where you really see and experience and receive something from them. But yeah, one of many ways we're building in the piece. I mean,
in the first piece, Occupant, the intention with, well, one character in particular, but maybe we'll expand that to all three characters, since that was a work that was inspired by, and we were actually hearing the text, part of the text of the play Occupant by Edward Albee. So if you can talk maybe about the relationship and how you translated characters from the play to kind of the abstract characters in the space.
Occupant was inspired by a play by Edward Albee, who was looking at Louise Nevelson, the great American sculptor, who was a Russian expat, Russian Jew. So Tal, over to you. How do you juggle Occupant with the text and the music and how do you do it?
I find it very exciting. Jonah was talking at first about the more traditional relationship of dance and music, and to dance having text in the background is a very different kind of attention, like I was saying before. It just requires so much memory and instinct.
Or maybe choose one o'clock.
An expression, I would even say.
Say.
So that is something I really enjoy. And I guess for your question about Betty. So this play, it has two characters, two people, and I guess for me, Betty is, Jonah, the way I guess he's seeing it, she's more like a ghost in the room, and for me, the way I see it, sometimes she's echoing the character of Louise, of the woman. A lot of like mirroring action is happening when she can look almost at herself, maybe at herself at different times.
Thank you. So the comment was about the last work, Rules of the Game, and the way that the music and how that was integrated and how well it flowed. And so that was an interesting thing because that was a collaboration both with Daniel and then also with Pharrell Williams. And I know, he has said and you said that this style of music was a bit of a departure for you, and to work with Pharrell was a first-time collaboration. Can you talk a little bit about how that music, how the music was developed, how that conversation was between the three of you, and also what it was like to kind of work with that style?
Pharrell has never had a symphony at his disposal. And we were all there with Pharrell and with the Dallas Symphony Orchestra. But then there's a kind of, Cupid comes in, right? So the Cupid is David Campbell. Because Pharrell and the symphony, if we just put them on this gray diamond, they would not know what to do. So Pharrell and the symphony needs an arranger and an orchestrator. So the arranger, orchestrator, and conductor, and eventually, this is like way later in the process, the co-composer is David Campbell. So he is a very cinematic arranger, but he trained with Stokowski. So when you have live music, like imagine a pit between your feet and my feet. So if we had an orchestra pit, the way that David Campbell would arrange the music so that you could hear it it jumps from Stokowski to David Campbell to what you heard tonight. And just in case the Stokowski reference, do you guys know Fantasia by Disney? Okay. So Stokowski is like how you hear the orchestra, basically, how the chairs are sitting. So the great Cupid of this sound score is David Campbell, because he got Pharrell and the Dallas Symphony to mate